Big patch came out on Warcraft Rumble last night. You may have noticed you had like a 700 megabit update on Warcraft Rumble if you've been playing it. So I want to take this moment to kind of break down the changes in the patch notes and also jump into game and show you some of the new stuff that is around. If you're interested in what they've done to deal with the Unbound mini PvP spam, keep watching because they have made some significant changes to how Unbounds work, especially on the current map. I don't know if they're rolling out other maps, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it once we get through the patch notes. Now, firstly, let's run through. They've added some accessibility and Turkish language options, and they've done some balance tuning bug fixes, and they addressed the Unbound mini issue. Right. Changes to minis. Holy Nova should no longer fire twice in a row on non-elemental minis when Amplify Magic is equipped. So Amplify Magic had a bug where if you used it on non-elemental minis, you would get the benefit of the talent anyway because it would just go twice. And Wellpegs versus Wellpegs would sometimes crush the game. I've never had that happen to me, but obviously it was doing it on some devices. Right, talents. Now, here's the interesting thing. You'll notice that all of these talents are buffs. So right, all of these talents are technically buffs. It will be interesting to see whether if they ever make a talent nerf, if you get the option to refund that talent or swap it out for something else. Because if this was Hearthstone and they nerfed a card, you are allowed to go and disenchant that card, get the full dust, and then craft something of equivalent value. Now, probably won't apply for this patch because everything that they've done in terms of talents is a buff. So, Amplify Magic. Damage increased from 140 to 150. That's on the Holy Nova Amplify Magic talent. Dark Iron Miner. Gold mine damage increased from 100 to 120. Now, I have that talent, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, absolutely some of the most pathetic damage you've ever seen in your life. It is ridiculous. So, I'll have to see. I'll test it. I still think the armored talent's going to be best. But 100 to 120 doesn't seem like a massive increase in terms of damage. Like, you're going to be tickling higher level units. I mean, I assume that these talents scale with level, but I'll do some testing and see what happens. Shrapnel Blast damage increased from 150 to 225. So a significant buff to Shrapnel Blast on Earth Elemental, which was the worst talent on Earth Elemental by quite a margin because it was very situational. Interesting again, if they buff talents that no one has been using, and you then want the option to use it, are they going to allow you the option to switch to the buff talent? I don't know. That's another question that needs to be asked, I think. Bramble Burst will now activate faster on Quillbore. Sorry, my nose. And a bloated carapace damage from 10 to 25 on Spiderlings. I think that was probably the best talent anyway, so that doesn't make too much of a difference. But or the double envenom one is good. But 10 to 25, you're doing what, 75 damage at a base level with all of them dying. It's a decent amount. And some talent icons have been updated. Onyxia. We've addressed an issue that caused guard towers to stay under the player's control instead of becoming Onyxias at the start of Phase 2. So, there are phases in the Onyxia fight, a little bit like the Devil Soul Queen, where she regains controls of guard towers. I think some players were able to take out Onyxia, probably due to this bug, especially with some people taking out Onyxia at like level 25, level 26 units. Here we go. And not that most of you will ever get to Onyxia anytime soon, so just to bear that in mind. Player versus player, Timbermore. The meeting stones have been replaced with towers, so very much like Gadget Zan now. You have a tower on either side of your base instead of a meeting stone, which basically means you have a slightly higher or sort of slightly bigger defensive layer. It makes split pushing strategies a little bit more effective as well. So very interesting to see that in place. It gives you some kind of protection down the side lane into Timbermore Hold. Players' bases have been moved back to prevent exploitative damage from Safe Pilot, Flame Burst Whelps, and Quillbore. So, Safe Pilot, when used on the very outer edge of the red zone in the player base, could damage the base. You could drop Wellpegs near the base, and the explosion would deal damage to the base, and Quillbore was also able to do the same thing, I think probably through the poison talent. So they've moved it back. Not that it's going to massively affect sort of people trying to use Unbounds, but that chip damage that you got from Safe Pilot and and Flame Burst Whelps, that was quite a sizable amount of damage in over the course of a match. And now, even more importantly, player bases can now detect stealth. Gnomish cloaking device Safe Pilot is useless. It's going to apply to Worgen. It's going to apply to Maiev as well. So this kind of makes those units significantly worse, because those units were often able to get a guaranteed hit on the base because they were able to just walk towards it, or you had to put something in front of them, which usually ended up taking a load of damage because they weren't able to hit them first. Now things like SI7 agents are going to be a great sort of tool at dealing with things like Worgen and things like Maiev, etc. So yeah, really interesting to see that change, and it's a significant nerf to Unbound spams, especially Unbound spam that just went for your base. You know, Unbound is still a strategy that I think they want to have in the game, but it needs to be a little bit more of a thought process than just spam the base and hope you win. So interesting to see those changes. You shouldn't see as much effective Unbound spam. I'm sure you will still see Unbound spam, but if you know how to deal with it, it will be significantly easier to deal with from now. We've addressed an issue that caused tomes to not be usable on minis that were max level with bonuses, even when their base level was not maxed. Tomes to not be used on minis that were max level with bonuses, even when their base level was not maxed. I don't know what that means. I assume when minis were max level, tomes couldn't... What do they mean, tomes not be usable? Oh, I see. So like the Griffin Rider... No. What do you mean tomes not be usable? If anyone understands this, please let me know in the comments below. Does it mean that even if you have a max level mini, it will now still show up in your tomes? Like, I don't really understand. Or will it now not show up in your tomes? Is that the point? You have a max level mini even when their base level was not maxed? Oh, I see. So the base level of experience goes up to a certain threshold, and if they were maxed with bonuses, including, like, I guess, rare, epic, all the talents, and also the slots, that you wouldn't be able to get experience for them if they were max level. But obviously you want to level all minis anyway. So basically, if they weren't maxed on their base level experience, they wouldn't show up in tomes, and now they will. Okay, took me a while to get there, but we got there. Menu narration. What does that mean? I'll have to check that out in game. High contrast. Option to tap to skip some screens. Tap to skip will not be available during the tutorial or first-time player experiences. Turkish language option. Okay, so that's going all the way back to August now. So that's the latest updates. Let's jump into game now, and we'll see if we can see. Menu narration must be an accessibility option, I imagine. I can't see it as an option, but whatever. So, something that is interesting is since the patch, I've seen quite a few graphical errors in the game. If you do Blood Mage Thanos level, you'll notice that there are just giant purple, non-rendered assets. So there are some asset issues since the patch. One of the biggest things is obviously you've seen some color changes around. The guild bug in terms of notifications seems to be fixed. They've also changed the way that the chat looks when I'm looking at it like this. That's pretty interesting. Dungeons, I need to do my Blood Mage Thanos dungeons this week, so someone remind me. Looks pretty much the same. Quests look the same. PvP looks very similar. I'm actually going to start grinding some PvP. Clean Fight is really interesting. I love this modifier, so I think a lot of people will be enjoying PvP this week. But very importantly, they've added emotes. So we now have emotes in the game, and they're actually pretty cool emotes. They're very much going down that Clash Royale sort of Clash Royale thing. They're all safe pilot emotes at the moment, but I assume over time we'll have emote packs offered to us. Another way of monetizing the game, obviously. But, you know, I don't mind cosmetic monetization. That's there if you want to buy it, and there if you're not. So I'd like some options to be able to get emotes from maybe, like, achievements. I think something in the game that could really benefit from is achievements. So, like, beating all heroic levels, you get an emote unlocked for that level or whatever. Like, that's just my personal opinion anyway. So I'd like to potentially see that offered as an option. But there we go, guys. That is the patch. There are some very quick minor changes, like when you open a tome, you get a slightly different animation now. You'll notice that some things just look a little cleaner. They look a little different. They've upgraded a few graphical things and VFX things throughout the game as well. So starting to look a little bit more fancy. They made it look a little bit more fancy, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if those birds were always there, by the way. Were these birds always there, flying around the map? Maybe I'm just being silly. I don't think I ever noticed them before, but whatever. That is the patch. Most importantly, Unbound PvP fixes. But we'll obviously keep you updated. If any more patches come up before global release, I'll do a breakdown of them as well. But that is the big update. Hopefully, PvP, especially with Clean Fight on, is going to be a lot more enjoyable for everyone for the next few weeks because Unbound is done and we have Clean Fight enabled, which is cool. I'll see you soon, and don't forget to subscribe if you like the content.